Maybe over here.
All right. Good afternoon. We are all set for the live broadcast stream of today's Louis C. Louis Committee, which stands for Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee, meeting at 6 p.m. on HPA-TV, Comcast, and Frontier Government Channels 96 and 6032. It would also be streamed via hpatv.org, the HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV's Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon TV. It will also be rebroadcast and made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. So thank you. I'll call this meeting to order. Thank you for our guests. Today we have voting member Councilwoman Rossetti. We have Director Kim Oliver, and I believe Assistant Director Christina Baldwin. Wonderful. So the first item on the agenda is Mayor Bronin with the accompanying resolution that the mayor, acting through the Department of Family, Children, Youth, and Recreation, is hereby authorized to accept YSB and YSB enhancement grants from the state of Connecticut for the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023, in the amounts of approximately $129,476 per year through the YSB grant and approximately $17,074 per year through the YSB enhancement grant. This is agenda item 2.7. So here we have Director Kim Oliver and Assistant Director Christina Baldwin. The floor is yours.
Hi. Good evening. I'm going to share my screen. So we were able to do this earlier. Let's see if we can do it now. Great. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and make it smaller so you can see. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So again, thank you for this invitation to speak to the Youth Service Bureau and Youth Service Bureau enhancement grants this evening. I've prepared a presentation with some background information to share with the council and our public. I also did invite my Assistant Director for Youth Services, Christina Baldwin, as Ms. Baldwin has many years of experience doing the work and leading the way here for our Hartford Youth Service Bureau. So for their questions, et cetera, if we can have a deeper dive discussion. So with that, I'll go ahead and forward this. And by the way, this presentation, I'll make sure is made available to council and public. All right. So the first thing about our youth service bureaus, and for some of you that are very familiar with youth service bureaus, this may be somewhat repetitive information, but just to go a little bit back in history. Youth service bureaus started in the state of Connecticut back in the 1960s, and it was really established as a way to respond to what were considered to be increasing needs among young people, in particular, a lot around justice issues. Since then, youth service bureaus have broadened their scope to really consider both advocacy as well as just coordination of the larger system of youth services and how can we have a comprehensive system that actually meets young people's needs. And I've also included here that it is state mandated and is pursuant to these sections 10-19 M, O, N, and P. That gives us some additional information just in case anyone was interested in learning more about the youth service bureaus in particular. Really, the focus of the youth service bureaus by a statute is around evaluation, planning, coordination, and implementation of services. And I'm going to talk a little bit about services on another slide where we can do a deeper dive. But as you can see, it really includes the breadth of service types from prevention to intervention programs. And as you can see, this language here really speaks to where the youth service bureau started in terms of delinquency and pre-delinquent, pregnant and parenting, and troubled youth. So this is the language that's actually out of the state legislative language. Referrals to youth service bureaus is very much open door. Here you see it's schools, police, our courts, our youth serving agencies, our parents, and also young people themselves can refer themselves to the Youth Service Bureau. Again, the focus is on coordination to have that comprehensive delivery of services that go, again, for the entire spectrum of young people. And in this world, and in the terms of this mandate, youth is defined by birth to age 18. And the reason I wanted to share that is because I know in my department, we do a lot of work that goes up to age 24. And of course, we still support young people up to age 24, but just wanted to acknowledge the Youth Service Bureau officially goes up to age 18. The youth service bureaus, in terms of the actual needs, again, it is supposed to meet the local needs for local youth. So again, you're seeing diversion here. You're seeing also, as it broadened, really opportunities for all young people. So youth service bureaus really should be serving all of the young people, in this case, all the young people of Hartford. And then I listed some of the services, again, under the regulations from the state of what could be considered, but notice the word not limited to. And you can see it's almost everything, but a couple of things I want to lift up is work placement and employment. Also, you see the outreach programs, a lot of preventive programs, including programs around pregnancy, youth suicide, violence, and harm, and also positive youth development. So again, a broad range of services that can be provided. So much so that youth service bureaus look different in different cities and towns. So what is before council is our request to accept funds in a total number of $146,550, because that is the combination of the grant as well as this enhancement grant that's been allocated to Hartford as part of the state's budget process. And these funds assist in establishing, maintaining, and expanding our Youth Service Bureau. And it's also a cost-sharing grant. And what that means is that we are expected to match one-to-one. Fortunately, with the approval of council, we already invest significantly in our young people in Hartford, so that's not a concern for us. But again, this does support administrative work as well as direct services and enhanced services. And so again, the role of a youth service bureau may look a little bit different in one town versus another. So that was just giving a little bit of an overview, and I now open it to any questions, council, that you may have.
Thank you, Director. So, Councilwoman Rose, first of all, I'd like to introduce Councilman Sanchez. Thank you for joining us today. He's a voting member of our committee. Councilwoman Rossetti?
Still having light problems, but I'm working. Okay. So, thank you for the presentation, Director Oliver, and good to see you, Assistant Director Baldwin. Good to see anyone, actually. So, when we say, in that last slide, when you say diversion of troubled youth, what do we do? Tell me what that means. Give me if people ask me that, what are we doing as we see every day? So what are we doing?
So I'm going to allow Ms. Baldwin to go into detail, because that is a lot of our work. We focus very specifically in Hartford that we're doing our deep dive around youth employment that we'll be speaking about a little bit later, and also what we call youth justice, which is a huge umbrella that includes our Juvenile Review Board. It includes our work around youth violence prevention and intervention work, which includes our rapid response work. And I would also include our truancy work in there as well. So with that, I'm teeing it up a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ms. Baldwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Council. Yes, so we provide, as Kim mentioned, a great many services around, as the statute called trouble youth. We, as Kim mentioned, our focus in our Youth Services Division, the Youth Service Bureau, we have two main areas of focus that we're working on right now. As Kim mentioned, the first one being workforce development, and then also youth justice, which goes to the heart of the question that you were asking. So we have multiple initiatives. Youth justice is a huge bucket that we're working on day in and day out. Some of the programs that get lifted up to the top, I would say, would be right amongst the top, especially in what's happening with our young people in the city, would be our Youth Violence Prevention and Intervention Working Group. And so, as part of that, we have formed a rapid response protocol for when a young person is a victim of violence in the city. We partner with many different entities around the table, of course, including HPD, all of the hospitals in the city, our partners on the state level, DCF, Court Support Services Division, our internal partners as well, the Village for Families and Children, and then, of course, our CBO, our community-based partners, first responders. So we have very strong partnerships as part of this work with Compass Youth Collaborative for the Peace Builders Program, Hartford Communities That Care, Mothers United Against Violence, the YMCA and their youth ambassador work. So we developed a protocol that responds immediately whenever a youth is a victim of violence in the city of Hartford. We have a tier 1 group that meets just within hours of the incident happening to determine what that service plan is going to look like for that young person, and what types of services they will need if they were at the hospital, if they weren't. And then additionally, the larger youth violence prevention and intervention group then goes on to provide an additional layer of support services for that young person, for their families, for their parents if they need support, for if they may have children of their own or younger siblings of their own. We also partner in that work with the school systems, where we have the wraparound services that are happening to the school and to the immediate community of that young person who was a victim of violence. So it's a very coordinated, in-depth process that we've spent a lot of time building over the past couple of years. And we have great partners, again, around the table that are working on that day in and day out. Kim also mentioned a couple of other programs that we implement to deal with this population of youth, including the Juvenile Review Board. So that is for young people that have committed lower level misdemeanor crimes. In an effort to divert them from the court system, they can be referred to our Juvenile Review Board, which is a panel that gives a recommendation for restitution of that young person. And then additionally, finally, I would say that new state mandates, state statutes have deemed youth service bureaus as the referral source for youth that are truant from schools and youth that have also are in need of other family with service needs referrals. So those referrals used to go to the juvenile court system, but just recently that system has changed to shift away from that being sort of like a punitive recommendation for those types of incidences that happen, to it being more community-based. And as such, those truancy and family with service needs referrals now come to all of the youth service bureaus, whatever those youth service bureaus are for the town of the youth that they serve. So those are actually, believe it or not, that's just a few of what we do under that youth justice bucket, but those are a few of the ones that, really rise up to the top when we're talking about this youth population that you mentioned, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilman Sanchez?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I missed most of your presentation. I had a hard time getting on, Kim. Now, Ms. Baldwin, you mentioned the Juvenile Review Board. How long has this program been in place, and how successful has it been so far?
Yeah, so juvenile review boards have been in place for a great many years. I actually don't know the exact year that they started, but youth service bureaus started in the 1960s. And so shortly thereafter, juvenile review boards were implemented too. The juvenile review boards are very community specific. So how we operate and implement our juvenile review board in Hartford would look different from the other towns across the state. And it's designed that way on purpose to be the most effective for the town in which the youth serve. We are contracted to serve 200 youth per year for the Juvenile Review Board. And we serve most every year, including during the time of the pandemic. We serve that many, if not more than that. So we do that with a robust partnership through the Village for Families with Children, we are able to send the screened referrals to, and then they provide the assessments and they do the placements of whatever it is, whatever the services are that the young person needs. In addition to that, under Kim's leadership, we have also established an additional wraparound service whereby if the Village for Family and Children, after receiving those referrals, are unable to successfully engage those young people, they can refer them then back to us at the Youth Service Bureau, where we do additional outreach in really intensive sort of like outreach and engagement with those young people.
All right. So, do you have the data on the success of that? Because, the reason why I'm asking this, as we all know, during the pandemic and now that we're going into the Delta variants of this pandemic, uh, most of our youth has been running rampant, if not chaotic, out there. And, and there's several youth that's been arrested for carrying weapons, knives, guns especially, right? And they're only given a summons. All right. Now, this bill at the state level that's been passed is to protect their future. And I understand that. But when they passed this bill, they failed to incorporate an accountability level of sorts, where if you strike out 3 times, then you're going to a different level of discipline action, whether it's, and I won't want to see them going to jail, and this is to protect the kids prior to their 18th year of age. But because there is no accountability, and we're talking about kids as young as 13 years old, even maybe younger. All right, by the time they turn 18, they know that they're only going to get a summons, and there's no accountability at all. And they know this, they're very smart. All right, but by the time they turn 18, don't you think that they just became a career criminal? Not all of them, but a good portion of them, because they have this carefree attitude now, and they've become more dangerous. I mean, do we have anything in place yet to address that kind of attitude, to redirect them in a way where they understand there is real consequences after the fact? And this is why I'm asking these questions about the success of this program. And as you know, a few months ago we've met, and I keep pushing for this youth challenge program that's sponsored by the Army National Guard, that we don't have here in Connecticut, but other states do, including Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And I think that will be very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And we were thrilled to be able to speak with you more about that program as well. So yes, we do have the data on it. I can definitely pull it and give it to you. It's included as a part of our in the budget book every year as well, in terms of the success rate for the Juvenile Review Board. But I think, Councilman, that you bring up, some excellent points, and you just speak to like the breadth of the issue and of the problem that we have. Not just Hartford, but around the state, around the entire nation, right? This is the constant challenge that we have. And we know in youth development that the young person's brain actually isn't fully developed until much later, into their early 20s. So this is the work that we constantly do. And I do want to stress that the Juvenile Review Board is just one piece of the whole puzzle. So not any one component can fix the problem in its entirety. And that's why, probably why our youth justice menu of services is so large. We are also doing just what you said, looking into more of that brain development and sort of how to reset the mind of the young person to take that pause and think before they commit that offense, right? Or before they act out in a way that we want to divert them from. So the answer to your question is number one, yes, we do have the data and we can provide that for you. And again, it's included in the budget book every year. But also that the Juvenile Review Board is just one piece to the bigger puzzle. And I think, as you were stating, we need to look at other programs nationally and internationally that may work for our young people to incorporate into our programming as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think also what's important to your point, because know that when Christina and I are working with our partners, including the mayor's office, Hartford Police Department, and others, and we're meeting, by the way, bi-weekly with those partners to try to do preemptive work before things happen, because we don't want our young people in the system. To your point, though, unfortunately, there have been some experiences with young people where the example you gave is very true. And we have some very hardworking partners and work that we have done where we have been disappointed at times based on some of the behaviors that have seemed to cycle around. Well, one of the reasons I want to bring that up, and I know that sounds unfortunate to talk to, is we have a very strong partnership with CSSD, Communities, Court Support Services Division, and part of the reason that we've been meeting with them even more so is because when we think about young people, like, did this work or not and make a difference, part of what we're trying to see is, did we have a young person, in this example, Juvenile Review Board, that ended up getting arrested, right? Like, how did we, and we, into Christina's point, we have that data, and we've actually working to also cross-reference that data, because now youth service bureaus have access to certain levels of data that we didn't have previous. But also want to acknowledge that when they're now in the system and with CSSD and with probation, I wish I could say it was a very black and white, easy system. I have to tell you, many folks working in the space, including ourselves at the city, we've had to get refreshers on what's going on because, and also so many things have changed. My point here is that we're partnering with CSSD to get in front of this a bit, because as you can imagine, it's discouraging to our families, to our community partners, even to our police officers at times, to see the same young people and saying, okay, I pulled you aside, I tried to have a conversation with you. It's very discouraging. And we're saying, what something's not connecting? How can we make sure that we're all hands on deck and working with that young person and with their families? And so again, we're doing preemptive work that's outside of the Juvenile Review Board work that Christina mentioned. Again, that work happens bi-weekly in partnership with the mayor's office and Hartford Police Department, Peace Builders, etc. And also we are doing work with CSSD specifically, because once a young person's in their system, they also receive a level of services. And quite honestly, in the past, communication hasn't always been clear. So we think that's an opportunity for improvement there. So know that there is a lot going on in this space, especially given the fact that we know with the pandemic, a lot of our young people are even more so traumatized, and in some cases acting out even more so. And what we can do, and knowing that we'll probably have opportunity to speak with the council in the future, is perhaps on one of these programs or a couple of these, do a deeper dive conversation to be able to better explain how all these pieces are fitting and intersecting with each other. But to Christina's point, what we can do in the meantime is show some data that we have specific to the Juvenile Review Board. Again, our goal is to catch them before they get in the system. Unfortunately, our young people, if you're carrying around a weapon, you're a little further along, and we don't even want you that far along. We're working with a lot of issues right now, just to be very transparent to the council and to our community, that our young people, some young people are afraid, and now they feel, and again, this is young people telling us this themselves, that they feel like to protect themselves, they need to find a gun. And that's obviously not what we want. That's not going in the right direction. And so we even have work that we do where we do mediations between different young people and network groups. And Ms. Baldwin has done an amazing job in setting a lot of that work up with our partners, and was able to really get to a root issue. This example I'm thinking of, Christina, was probably about a year ago or so. And knowing that our community partners follow through, and we had something that was going to become a really ugly situation for our community, that a lot of these issues, they're young people, they're children, and so you'll find out what started it, and it'll be things that you would imagine happens in middle school and high school. I mean, these are literally the issues, like so and so says something about me on Facebook, and now it's become like this big thing. So I think that we can pull some data for you, and perhaps in one of our subsequent meetings, maybe go deeper into those programs, because I think it will be helpful to be able to focus specifically on that, because admittedly, it's a lot there, and it's very complex, and know that we here, Christina and I and our team are working diligently on our city's behalf, and we'll love to share that information with you. So if you're willing to have us, I would say we can come back and have a deeper dive discussion on that if you like.
Thank you so much for that, both to you, Kim, and Christina. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So with that being said, we definitely can invite you back so we can share that data. Just one question that I have. It seems like, so it's 146,000, and it seems like there's a bevy of things that are going on. Can you, in terms of this dollars, how is that being funded? Because there were nonprofits mentioned. Is there staffing? Is it just a piece a little bit here and there? Or how is the funding affecting all of that stuff?
Yeah, so what I'll start, and then I'll invite Christina to jump in. Primarily, we utilize these funds for staffing. The council, with generosity, knows that we put out approximately about $1.5 million each year out of general funds to support work around employment injustice, and have been doing so. And so the staff that this funds support, it's one full-time employee plus partial employee for data support, really helps to administer that work. So when we're doing our work in terms of employment, and again, we'll go into some numbers in a second on that, but again, the work that you just heard Christina speak to, and as we talked about the need to do the deeper dive, know that this staff person is assisting us with that, as well as the truancy task force work that I'm proud to say Hartford is a leader in the state on. I wish we could say it in our numbers. We don't want as many truant young people, but in terms of the processes and our partnership with the school districts, literally our team is training other towns, which I'm so proud of. So thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Let me say that publicly here, with your leadership. But yeah, it's primarily for for staffing. Ms. Baldwin, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, no, that's exactly right, Kim. And as you mentioned, that staffing, ends up being a really integral part in getting that data that we spoke about a bit earlier. So the level of work that the team and the staff do probably it's just, it isn't reflective even like of this dollar amount, but I'm just really proud of the work that they all do day in and day out. And so, the Youth Service Bureau grant obviously is essential to the work that we do. We do have a small team here at Youth Services that do a tremendous amount of work. So that one, and partial, one full and one partial position are really critical pieces to the work that we do.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to send the resolution to council favorably.
Second that.
All right. Hearing a motion and being seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved, so approved. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the update on the summer youth employment.
Okay, great. So I am going to, again, go ahead and share my document. Okay. There we go. Hopefully the screen is popping up and everyone can see it. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes speaking and giving a bit of an overview of our Summer Youth Employment Program for summer 2021. And also I'm going to use the word preliminary data. Primarily, you're going to see the word preliminary and giving us some top level data because obviously we did want to provide an update tonight. But the actual report that we receive from our partner, Capital Workforce Partners, comes next month. So as we want to unpack and see trends and see recommendations for next year, we'll be able to have a deeper dive conversation with council, I would say more so November timeframe, after we've been able to also absorb the information that from that comprehensive report. So Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program, as many of you know, is administered by Capital Workforce Partners, who is the Regional Workforce Development Board for North Central Connecticut. They have received the funding for summer youth employment for the last several years. And as a Workforce Development Board, they receive the funds from the state for to support the program under the state's title, the Connecticut Youth Employment Program. So usually what you see is that our dollars, every dollar we put in, is matched by state dollars and also private dollars, most notably Hartford Foundation in particular. And then also, I believe this year it was JP Morgan Chase Foundation who provided some support. In previous years has also been Travelers Foundation, etc. So we're able to match every single dollar we put in. The program itself is for young people ages 14 to 24. For many of you, I know, again, this information, you already know this, but I'll just say 14 because, of course, that's when you legally can work. 24 because even at the federal level, we can still consider you to be a young adult. We just talked about brain development a little bit earlier, so we all get a sense of why. But Department of Labor does look at someone who's under 25 as a young person. Young people have a great opportunity to do a lot of exploration in terms of interest and careers. We know that's so important. How many times we've heard people don't know what happens at City Hall, right? And this is one of those opportunities is learned. Are you interested in working at the city? Are you interested in manufacturing? Oh, did you know that your skill set might be a really good fit for this, etc. Workplace skills, it continues to be something where we hear from employers all the time that our young workforce, our new workers do not have the skills, many times the essential skills to be productive in the workplace. And so this program assists with that. And then overall, just this learning experience that really supports young people in terms of their social and leadership skills, as well as their civic engagement and skills as well. It is a very structured program. I'm going to share more information about that in a moment. And this summer, our program ran from July 1 until August 27th. So the program design for this summer was a combination of virtual and in-person learning. That is primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Previous to that, all of our program was in person, but we did adapt this starting in the summer of 2020. We use nationally recognized skill trainings as a way to guide our young people and making sure they're industry recognized, as well as opportunities in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases to receive some credentials. Again, has interest-based career pathways. Anyone who's doing this work knows that it's not just about your skill set, it's also about your interest. If you're not interested in doing something, many times you won't be successful in that career. It's definitely about the connection to employers, especially for that opportunity for job shadowing. Employers and others also help us with mock interviews and overall, again, that job readiness training. The program also is focused on our 12 work-based learning readiness standards or competencies. I have this as a hyperlink, so when I share this, you'll be able to click right on this link and it'll open it up so you can actually get more information on the actual 12 competencies in case anyone is interested. The program design is a 3-tier program design. Hartford is actually known nationally for this design. And it's really based on the concept of job readiness and also to some degree age, because the thinking, of course, is the older you are, the more likely you may have had an opportunity to have a previous job or workplace experience. So the first tier is usually our 14 and 15-year-olds that may have no or limited experience in the workplace, and they're assessed as really not ready, right? Not job ready. And a lot of their work is project-based learning and career exploration. I'm not going to read every single word, but just to give a sense of it. Really to introduce them. This is what happens at work. This is what's important. Team building skills, and doing work of that nature. Again, all of our tiers, you're going to see a common 120 hours. So you're still doing a full program, even at tier 1. You're also getting paid for those 120 hours. And as you can see, we did have 40 hours that are now online, a readiness platform. When our young people, by the way, are online, it's not like they're online by themselves in a sense. They still are connected to a caring adult at a community-based organization who's working with them and staying connected to them. So it's not as if they're being abandoned for 40 hours online. Just wanted to point that out. Our second tier is usually a little bit older, 15 to 17 years old, and you may have some work experience, but you're still not exactly job ready. This is really focusing on that career competency development training. And again, what you're going to be is connected to a caring adult who's going to be able to act as a coach and a guide. So it may be in a workplace setting, but it's almost like a safe workplace, if you will. So if you mess up, this is a person who understands that you're still new. You may not realize that, you picked up your phone to have a phone call or FaceTime, and it's like, okay, no, let's go ahead and talk about this and why that doesn't work for the workplace, as opposed to immediately saying, oh, you're terminated, or you're not going to be a fit for the job. Again, it's 120 hours with the 40 hours online. The third tier is our older set of young people, 17 to 21 years old. In this case, it would go up to 24. I just want to acknowledge that. And this is usually someone who had some type of work experience, and they're assessed in terms of age level work readiness, right? So I also want to be clear about that. We acknowledge that if you're 17 years old and you're considered job ready, that may not mean the same thing that when you're like 30 years old and you consider job ready. Again, we're going to really focus in on those career competency skills, really doing assessments about what's maybe missing for you or opportunities for you to learn. And as you can see, it's 100 hours in this case of paid work experience that's really, again, focused, and they may get some additional curriculum from their community-based organization that they're tied to make sure that they're successful in that space. And sometimes, again, that's based on an individual program. So, for example, if you are really interested in learning more about construction, they may start giving you intro in terms of, okay, this is what a construction site looks like. This is information about OSHA, et cetera. So beginning to personalize it a little bit more to you. Okay, so our goals. These are our goals of the actual program, and that we ask Capital Workforce Partners to report back to us. So as you can see that the top goal is that 85% of our youth will be rated as meeting or exceeding their workplace competencies. And again, notice that's by a supervisor. So that's not self-attested by the young person. It's literally a supervisor is saying, okay, Kim came to work on time. Kim's able to communicate, etc. Second goal, 85% of youth will actually complete the program. This is a program where completion is really important because we know that it's about the full experience. Again, we want you to have that 120 hours of program activity, but there is a note that in some cases, a young person may say, hey, I just got offered this other job over here that's an unsubsidized job, and we don't want that to be punitive for our young people. If anything, that's great, and we continue to stay connected to that young people and still consider them completed in the program. 90% of young people will report that they are continuing education or entering employment at the end of the program. This has become really important, especially for our older young people. You think about your 12th grader, and you want to make sure that, again, you have a community-based organization and caring adult who's attached to you, and that you're having these conversations about, okay, what is next? How do you think you're going to get there? What type of post-secondary planning assistance do you need? That type of thing. So it's one of the roles of our community-based partners. And then the last one here is that 30% of our Tier 3 youth in the work sites will be retained as an unsubsidized employee. So basically, again, so that again, you hit that Tier 3 where you already were considered work ready based on your age, and that you've been able to be so successful with that employer says, you know what, we want to keep you. And fortunately, we've seen many of those examples, and 30% is the number that we think is about right in terms of reaching this goal. The other thing I want to acknowledge is the fact that we did have emphasized enrollment. And the reason I'm not calling it targeted enrollment is because the Summer Youth Employment Program is open to everyone. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. The reason that these populations were emphasized, if you will, is because the concept is that they have a little bit higher need, and we want to make sure that we were capturing them into the program. Traditionally, what happens with Summer Youth Employment and many similar programs, and sometimes we get the the best of the best, right? And they get these great experiences, and we're not really being inclusive of other young people that may have some stronger needs. So again, those rising ninth graders, I know the council and our public knows just how critically important it is to keep these young people engaged, and that they do not become disconnected, and that they continue to go to school. So again, that's why we have that focus on that ninth grade, as well as our graduating 12th graders, again, so that they continue on in their career. We have the data. We know, unfortunately, if you just have your high school diploma, you're never going to get to family sustaining wages based on the data that we have here. You need some type of post-secondary. It may not be college. It may not be even a 2-year degree, but there is a high likelihood that you need some additional post-secondary education to be successful. The providers, 4 providers for Hartford is Blue Hills Civic Association, Center for Latino Progress, Community Renewal Team, and Our Piece of the Pie. Those 4 providers have been working in this program for many, many years. So they are pros at this point. So they're very familiar names, I'm sure, to all of you. So here we're going to jump a little bit into the preliminary data here, and this is participants by age and gender. And again, you're going to see that we have participants ranging age from 13 to 23. So let me explain 13 very quickly. You can apply for summer youth employment at the age of 13 if you turn 14 in time for the program. So the age that is being captured, though, is the age at the time of application. So I just wanted to clarify that. And this year we did not have any 24-year-olds, so that's why 24 is not on this list. As you look at it, you'll see that it's evenly distributed between our genders in terms of male, female, etc. And but you will see that there's definitely that a higher set of higher numbers when you get around the ages of 15 especially, but then also 14 and 16 as well, which is pretty standard for this program. Our total this year served is 737 young people this past summer. So again, those are 737 Hartford residents. In terms of our participants, this one is by tier. Again, not so surprising that you're seeing a little bit of almost like a waterfall there. Tier 1 is younger, tier 2 is more in the middle, tier 3 is a little bit older. Again, you're seeing somewhat of an even distribution here. For the most part, we always want to get to tier 3 as much as possible. As you can see, we were able to get 39% of our participants into tier 3. And again, you see the distribution here of the 737 participants. And then also I have here now by grade, similar to age, so not completely surprising. You're going to see most of our young people around that 9th, 10th grade, even 11th grade. Again, for the most part, not exactly, but a little bit evenly distributed. But then when you get to out of school, as you can see, it begins to really wean off there at only 5% of out of school young people. Here are some of our top work sites, just meaning that they have 5 or more placements or participants in the program. This is just giving you a sample. Again, I have here preliminary. It's not that this is not accurate information, but more so that when they finish up, we may find that there's some additional employers. But just to give you a sense, and you can see such a variety here from our CBOs to us here at the City of Hartford to retail, to small to large organizations, public, private. So as you can see, there definitely is a variety here in terms of the actual employers that worked with our young people this year. And again, as a reminder, you'll have a copy of this so you don't have to memorize these names. And then in terms of job titles, I think also what's really telling here is that when you look at this, these are kind of the job titles that is traditional in summer youth employment. Usually young people who are working with public, working with other young people, such as the camp counselor, working with community. You see a lot of retail support and also office administrative support. So again, these are pretty standard and we're not surprised, but it gives you again another sense of just some variety in terms of the titles that we see in summer youth employment. And that is it for this presentation. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I want to apologize to the group and that if you guys heard my dog barking, he's normally very shy, but he wants to be a part of the meeting today. So, but I open up the floor to my colleagues. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Councilman Sanchez.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. So the program, I noticed is quite a few employers there. How about larger corporations like the insurance companies, the MDC? I know the City of Hartford is there, which is great. But the other private sectors, that's, you know, are we engaging with them, or are they participating in one way or another as far as offering some positions?
Yes, they are. There has been an impact because of COVID-19 pandemic. I want to acknowledge some of our insurance companies as well as our financial services like Bank of America, who were figuring that out and trying to have remote, if believe it or not, internships with young people and still being able to have that connection. But it definitely has been impacted because, as you know, usually there'll be more people working on site, so people being able to go into the offices. But we do, this list again is just for those who had at least 5. So when we have the full report, we'll be able to give you the full list of employers. And so we'll be able to do that in another month or so with the council.
And my second question, what happens to those students that graduate that rather follow a career but not continue the education? What happens?
So this program is actually supportive of that because we believe that pathway to life success, which includes employment and education success, is not always going to be through college. That's why when we do have a 12th grader who connects with an employer, many times I will tell you some of our best employers in summer youth employment are retail, to be quite honest. They will work with them and be able to keep the job and continue, because sometimes they're saving money for college, etc. We've also had some young people who have, through some of their work, gone on to a different type of post-secondary education track that might allow them to be something like a CNC machinist, right? Which we know we always could use more of those, as opposed to perhaps going to college. So we're actually supportive of that, but that's one of the reasons you might remember that there was a goal earlier where having that connection and saying that you're still continuing education and employment is one of the goals of the program. That's by design. So when we have that full report from Capital Workforce Partners, we'll be able to speak to how successful we were this year with that.
And I'm sorry, my last question, has there been any opportunities or collaboration with the armed forces, ROCT, any kind of opportunity for the older, of course, you have to be 18 or 16 with consent, I believe, to join the forces, or it could be reserved. Any opportunity there?
I have to double check for this year if we've had it. We had traditionally had the armed forces as part of the career tracks that we work with young people. I know for some people, they don't always include the armed forces, but we traditionally do. I will acknowledge we have to double check this year to see if that connection was made, and we will do that. We have some of our other programming that we support, not through grant dollars, but just working in partnership with whether it be Capital Workforce Partners and others, where we ensure that that pathway is not just well articulated, but they're actually speaking to like the local offices, and we'll have and this is where Councilman Sanchez, you'll do better than me. If they're not a recruiter, they come in and they speak to the young people, and it's actually multiple armed services. So you will have, like, for example, one of the ones I've been to in the past have been more about the National Guard, the Army and National Guard, and speaking to young people and talking about opportunities that came through that. But we'll have to double check this year to see if that connection was made.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So thank you, Director, for that comprehensive report. The summer program, I remember myself going to summer program and how integral it was for me to learn the work, how important it was for me to, get, network and see other parts of the city and learn how to just even take the bus to get to a job site on time, and learn bus routes and those type of things. And then the important part was buying us back to school clothes, which, Jordans are pretty expensive. So those were all very important during that time. So thank you for the update, and seeing no other further business. Yes, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Later, Nick.
Later, Jimmy.